Welcome to Influential Entrepreneurs, bringing you interviews with elite business leaders and experts, sharing tips and strategies for elevating your business to the next level. Here's your host, Mike Saunders.
Hello and welcome to this episode of Influential Entrepreneurs. This is Mike Saunders, the Authority Positioning Coach. Today we have back with us Kerry Morris, who's the founder of HonorShield, and we'll be talking about should widows fire their husband's financial advisor. Kerry, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Mike. Yeah, good to be back. I love this question. What do you think about
this is quite an interesting one where it's like, hold up, should fire what? So let's kind of set the stage here. And when would this come up? So as an example, obviously a widow, the husband passes away, and then there's a decision that needs to be made. So what are some of those things and considerations that they need to be thinking about? As an example, should this be considered, the week after the funeral, so I know we want to dive into some of these things, but I find this a really interesting, should they fire them or should they keep them? So get us started with what you are advising your clients to do.
Yeah. And, the quick answer to should they fire their husband's financial advisor is it depends.
Maybe.
Right.
Yeah. All right.
And I'll tell you so I'm the kind of advisor that actually a lot of couples came to us over the years and actually hired us so that we would be there to take care of the wife after he passed away, with the assumption being he was going to pass first. Right. And so I wasn't aware that this would be becoming a problem. And then a friend of mine named Dave Macchia, who's done a lot of research and a lot of writing, that's David Macchia. And he discovered through their research and their studies that literally about 70% of widows are firing their husband's financial advisor.
Wow. That's a huge number. And it makes me think of something else. Lifespan. So why are we talking about widows firing their husband's financial advisor, and why aren't we saying widowers firing their wife's financial advisor? Well, isn't it true that statistically research shows that women are living longer than men? So that's why this conundrum is here.
Yeah, that's part of it. And it's multifaceted. Okay. So, even though we'll give it the best treatment we can today to kind of help bring some light to this, it also is generational too. And we're talking about boomers here, right? So much, not so much so for the greatest generation. I think that didn't come about. What we're seeing here, this trend, is not until this is a very current present day thing. And it's only going to change even more. And get this, statistically, out of most couples, the husband is the one who tends to kind of work with the finances and so forth. And believe me, I've had tons of clients over the years where the wife didn't want to have to be bothered with it in a way a lot of times, so there's a lot of different factors to this, but we'll get to what really is the number one piece here in a second.
Yeah. So because, you always hear these, well, here's, the top 10, but it's like when you go from 10, 9, 8, 7, you want to hear what's the number one, forget number 9 or 10, because that's probably ancillary. Let's talk about number one. So what should for starters, what should a widowed woman think about regarding retaining? So just kind of get it started from the surface level before we get to number one. What are some of the things they should be considering?
Yeah, I think it has to do with, are they comfortable with that advisor? Has that advisor made a point to make sure that they have included them over the years? Now if they self-select to not be included, then the advisor can't control that, but how's it gone? I mean, is it been the husband? Because we'll see situations where the husband and the advisor, they're just jumping off all into kind of charts, and there's a big difference. I mean, it's Mars and Venus, right? So this conversation, Mike, really goes back to some foundational differences between men and women. So it's I would say tangible and intangible. Everybody's kind of looking for hard code checklists, but it really, we'll talk about some of those differences, but the considerations are almost instinctual.
Yeah, like you mentioned, Mars and Venus. It's almost like sometimes, not in all cases, but sometimes men just want to be like, just tell me the facts, move on, go, go, go. Women might be like, no, 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 don't confuse me with numbers and charts and graphs. Tell me the story behind, and you hear that on Shark Tank a lot too. It's like, okay, that's great about the pitch and all that, but how do you get in it? What drives you? And so it really is how specific people communicate.
Yeah, exactly. And it may be coming down to how does she feel about that advisor? So there's a history there that goes into it. There's a feeling, that old saying, like, people remember more of how you made them feel than what you did for them.
What you said.
Yeah,
Yeah.
than what you said. Yeah.
Yep. Maya Angelou said that.
Yeah. So it's a big deal. It's a big deal.
So let's just start at the summit. What's the number one reason?
Yeah, I like starting at number one because
everything else falls into place, right? If you fix number one,
if you're going to do 10, it leaves 2 through 10 in the big shadow. Number one casts a big shadow, and really it boils down to, in the research, it comes down to relationship. Okay.
Yeah.
Which we were kind of touching all over it. And, how, and sometimes it's something that's gradual. It's not that the advisors are doing it on purpose. We still have a very unbalanced advisor population. I think it's I think in the CFP world, there's about 25% of the CFPs are women. But it's less than that much less than that in the overall advisor population, so and that's why I mentioned Mars and Venus, because part of this is just, guys are kind of known for not relating very well a lot of times to ladies. But let me tell you, when you're, I know in our practice, it's just always been very, very important. We try to really, so as an advisor, sometimes you almost have to overweight your intentions and overweight your time, the time you spend with the client, to really try to pull the wife in sometimes. And so a lot of us, we know automatically, like, if we're going to ask a question to a married couple, we always ask the wife first, always, because we're going to get a clear answer. And then you get into dynamics too of, you're going to have one spouse more dominant. Sometimes you'll have a couple come in and she's going to do all the talking, so that happens too. So this topic today we're discussing, it's not meant to put any hard stamps on anything other than there's a pretty doggone strong trend that's happening with the 70%. That's a large number, 7 out of 10. And so it comes back to, again, remember I said it's kind of internal. When you think about relationship, that all adds up over time to get to that point where, she's just like, she maybe
something
goes and
just doesn't set right with me.
Yeah.
So, that
maybe
kind of
she
thing.
goes and talks to a couple others, and all of a sudden gets listened to in a different way, and so forth and so on, so, because that
70%
advisor
number.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Well, that husband's advisor, it is going to tend to a lot of times continue to operate in the same way, right? If the advisor's not aware of this, and they're just not, again, a lot of times they're not doing it on purpose, right? But that's just how they're used to functioning, because the men do focus and have priorities of different things than the ladies over the years. So that advisor is just trying to serve the client. And if the husband is the lead of the two, then that's what, but why should, the advisor's not going to actually automatically just change, right? Unless they're aware of this issue.
Yep.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Yeah. The advice, I was going to just say something that you really just answered in the example I was thinking is, the advisor may say to the husband, if he's the one that handles the money, he might explain the same net result that he thinks makes the case, which is, hey, we're going to put your life savings in such a trajectory forward that you're going to have, wonderful gains and have a great retirement. And the husband is relating to that, high-fiving mentally, going, yep, good. But the wife needs to hear, so that your kids are taken care of, so that you can travel and do whatever you want, so that you don't have any worries. And it gets to more of the emotional side of things, as opposed to just show me the numbers and boom, boom, boom. You said the same thing, but you just came about it from two different angles.
Yeah. And it's like the lady sitting there going, wait a minute. Hey, I'm sitting right here. And you know what? I'm the one that's going to have to take care of this rascal.
Yeah.
And so,
Right.
Well,
also,
you're exactly
you said sitting right here, the 70% number is a pretty big number. And isn't it true that most of the advisors that are working with a couple, they want the husband and wife to be in the quarterly review, the annual review? So many times the wife is sitting right there, like you just said. Where's the breakdown?
Oh yeah, the breakdown is it just happens gradually. Again, the advisor, their delivery. So a lot of advisors, and I've been guilty of this component in the past, is investment advisors especially, we love our charts and graphs, man. You said it earlier, Mike. But what I learned over the years, especially I was in a study group for a year and a half, and just learning that the charts and graphs and all that's great to do our research in the background, but it can be very overwhelming to the client base. And see, the husband client, a lot of times he's just going to sit there and nod his head, because they're going to be more, performance driven. So let's just dig into for a second, why is this such an issue? Okay. And it's really the foundational part that David and his team and others have been able to figure out, is it really goes back to that men generally are more performance driven. I think men have a greater ability to see a future that's the way that they want it, whether everything's going to match that outcome or not. They just want to know, what's the average return on this, and
Yep.
and they're just trying to performance.
It might be messy getting there. They just want to focus on the end.
Yeah. I mean, men are a lot of times just confident. Oh, well, we'll deal with it. They're used to conquering all this. Not that the ladies aren't used to conquering things, but it's just, on the other hand, the ladies, which is much wiser. Okay. You and I both know, we're both married. We both, you and I know each other a little bit, but I guarantee you, I would, if I had to bet, you would be a guy that leans into your wife's intuitions like I 100%. Do. They're using both sides of their brain, right? Unlike us. And so
Right.
The ladies are smart enough to go, hey, they're driven by their goals, risk reduction, confidence, and over and over again, what's been found in the findings of why you and I are even discussing this today, and why that number is so big, is it comes down to that: goals, risk reduction, and confidence. And so the ladies, they want to understand, okay, how does this particular recommendation an advisor's making, or how the way you've got me set up, how does that meet my goals? And in other words, they're not going to sacrifice they're not going to sacrifice reaching their goal just for a sports car, just for, they would rather have a nice sedan, using that metaphor, that has a higher degree of confidence to get them to their goal, not their goal plus 1x or 2x, right?
Yeah.
So the guys are just tempted to swing for the fence more, and the ladies are, I'm going to switch metaphors, aren't I? And the ladies are tempted, they're going to take their singles and doubles and win the game, more so often.
Well, and let's throw another metaphor: the tortoise and the hare. The guys are like, let's just be the hare, just sprint. But then we lose our breath, and here comes that steady plodding tortoise that wins at the end of the day. So I think all of those are great examples, because people are different, and I think that makes a whole lot of sense. When I hear about a problem as a guy, you and I both would go, "Ooh, let's put our fix it hat on, and how can we fix it?" So it makes me think, what can advisors and clients do to solve the problem? And it makes me think from two sides of the equation, because what can an advisor do to solve this problem, but what can a client do to solve this problem? Because if we're talking about, should widows fire the husband's advisor, here's a lady that goes, I don't really necessarily love change, so it's not like I want to fire the advisor. So maybe some of the lessons we're learning here can be learned from both sides of the equation. So what can advisors do to solve the problem? And then what can the client do to solve the problem?
Exactly. And so advisors have got to get their head out of the sand for one, and realized, and a lot of times change comes from just realizing things and saying, well, you know what, I have been doing that, not intentionally, but I've not dug in enough, or and so the way that can manifest itself into a new practice by an advisor is to just make sure that they're including this language of goals and the risk reduction and the confidence piece. In other words, when showing a pathway, explain to them like, hey, we could take more risk in this and this and this could happen, this positive, but this negative, or we can take this level of risk and then have a higher degree of certainty of getting there. And we kind of narrow that risk spectrum, but really tying it into goals. And again, it's like, I'll give you a perfect example. I had a client recently, she's 65, and man, she really was so ready just to turn in that notice. She wanted to retire so bad. And so what enabled her after the analysis and our conversations, the whole 9 yards, what it really allowed her to do that was that she was used to making money at a certain level, but she was plenty happy with a level, say 30% below that for annual income. It met her needs and so forth. So that's a perfect example of she wasn't going to continue to, force it or take higher risk. It was more important to her to achieve the goal of retirement, having all of her base bills paid at a lower level of risk and have a higher level of confidence. So that might come with guaranteeing income streams, So where a guy might be tempted to keep swinging for the fences and just say, okay, well, I'll just chance it.
I've got all my faculties. Let me just push, go, go, go. And in that case, that lady is like, I just want my schedule to be freed up and flexible. And if that means that I can adjust my lifestyle down a little bit, but still have my flexibility and freedom, now you're talking my language. So that's a really good example.
Yeah. And so like with HonorShield, for example, we deal with the high cost of aging, right? And so you got a whole population that they don't even know the type of solutions that we have. And in our area of work with HonorShield, think about it. The burden on the ladies, this whole topic of men versus women and two different experiences is even heavier overweighted, because the ladies in our country are by and far more the caregivers than the men. Nothing against the amazing men caregivers out there. Okay. Yeah. And like I said before, everybody, this conversation is not to be a hard template for everything. Not everybody's going to fit into this, what we're saying today, obviously. But we're just talking about this trend. So that's what advisors can do. What clients can do, Mike, to help solve this problem is, I would say, one, husbands really encouraging wives to get involved, come to that annual review, speak up, and I'll tell you, stop and tell your advisor, maybe help them understand like, hey, we really want to see the breakdown of how this relates to our goals. You would think that's happening anyways. I'm a little spoiled being kind of part of the CFP world. I'm used to breaking all that stuff. We're very goals oriented type planning, but this is what's happening across a broad range of advisors out there. And so clients can definitely help with that by going in and being verbal about all this. Ladies, taking the initiative early, and really, again, let's not have our head in the sand about aging. Let's not have our head in the sand about like, hey, if he dies first, here's what the goals are. If she, and actually, the last thing I'll say about that is really identifying what is important to the family. It seems like an obvious question, but that really takes some discovery sometimes to get down to the bottom line of what is important to that wife, to that husband.
Because that first response of what's important, is going to be whatever the answer is. And it's like, okay, that's just the first response, but what's important about that? Why is that so impactful? Oh, well, I guess if I had that, then it would make me feel this or accomplish that. That's wonderful. And then if you can't go 427 layers deep, but if you don't take that first answer as like the final answer and you just dig and dig and dig, all of a sudden you realize that they really want to achieve this because of that.
Right. Exactly. And, because everybody's got to have income. Everybody's got to have certain things. Those are all basic and foundational. And so you've got your 12 loaves and 2 fish. Everybody comes with their basket, what they have, right? And then it's a matter of, can we make that? How do we feed retirement? I mean, this whole thing, and don't get me started, we don't have time for that, but this whole thing of retirement is still a new thing, this idea of retirement. But that's for another episode, right?
Yeah, exactly. Well, getting everyone on the same page is huge. Recognizing that this could be potentially a opportunity to clarify communication styles is huge. So I think that's these points have been really eye-opening, especially in light of that 70% statistic.
Yeah. So, you and I did an episode one time about fiduciary standard. You see how this is what we just talked about today is another brick in that wall. And so that's why it can feel overwhelming to folks, to even go through this process and of working with an advisor or working with a planner and things like that, but if you can kind of address one brick in the wall at a time, or kind of understand where the pieces fit, then that starts helping that sense of confidence, that sense that, okay, we're all pulling in the same direction, and so we really want the industry to wake up and start realizing that, I mean, even from a business standpoint, Mike, the ladies in our country are on their way to controlling the bulk of the wealth in our country, like $30+ trillion. And so from an industry standpoint, the industry got to wake up, or they're going to just start losing clients. We also need more ladies in the advisory community. We need more ladies to become financial advisors. But yeah, it's let's just finish with, it's a really cool thing though, when it does work together, when there's mutual respect, when you understand, like I have a lot of widow clients, and I'm actually having lunch tomorrow to celebrate with 2 of them of their retirement and that kind of thing. And they were in, and so anyways, it can be an incredibly positive thing, and you can tell the difference when they feel comfortable and you're doing things the way that they want, and when you're not.
And when it's a seamless transition. So that's spectacular. So super, Kerry, thanks for those insights. If someone is listening, wanting to learn more about HonorShield and how to connect with you, what is the best way that they can do that?
I think HonorShield.com is the easiest way. They can click and schedule a call, or shoot us an email and get to me from there. But yeah, HonorShield.com, great way.
Awesome. Thank you so much for coming back on, Kerry. It's been a real pleasure talking with you.
Thank you, Mike. See you next time, man.
You've been listening to Influential Entrepreneurs with Mike Saunders. To learn more about the resources mentioned on today's show or listen to past episodes, visit www.influentialentrepreneursradio.com.